Okay, so the next thing that we need to deal with, we've been playing with our pencil and going from dark to light, and that's actually called blending or shading. Some people call it shading. And we've used the idea of chiaroscuro or chiaroscuro. And, um, and so now, what happens if you have a pen and you don't have a pencil? And so anytime you're dealing with a pen, you can't erase it. So you will have to actually be thinking about what areas do you want to be dark and what areas would you like to keep light. But there are a couple of specific techniques that are used. We've got hatching, which is basically just marks done horizontally. They could be done vertically. They can be done, here I'll just do some vertical. You can do them horizontal. That's hatching. And see, these are all diagonal, showing just using hatching lines. And these are hatching. And then you can get into what is called stippling. And there are special pens made for stippling. And what is basically happening is the more dots that you put in an area, the less you see of, well, the darker it gets. I've got dogs playing down here at my feet, so they're distracting me. All right, then I've got scribbling, which is kind of fun because you're just kind of just scribble away. Don't even worry, just kind of play. But as you're doing it, you got to be thinking, okay, I'm actually making this area of the tree darker right here. And then lastly, you have cross hatching, which is basically you've got the hatch marks, which are like right here, but then to make a darker area, you're going to have a cross hatch. So you're hatching and then crossing that hatch. This is hatching, and then larger areas of cross hatch will allow for it to be in a more light area. And so right here it's showing, you know, white, you got a value scale, and then hatching, and then cross-hatching, more cross-hatching, and each time you do it, it just gets darker and darker. Okay, so your problem is to solve this page. You have an example to look at. This one is hatched and cross-hatched, and it even has some stippling in it. And I've already started with the stippling on this one, and I actually used the larger end of my pen. Oops. Yeah. The larger end of my pen. And started playing with the idea of, okay, these are my dots, and I'm filling in, and I know that that area right there is pretty dark, and so I'm going to keep going and adding those dots. But I don't want it to get as dark as the core shadow, because this is my core shadow. So the core shadow will be the darkest. And then you remember I have reflected light right along here. So I'm keeping that fairly light. And I'm starting to just fill in. And it's just a matter of taking time to make those dots. And it does take time. You have to be patient. Because if you do a mark like this, that's a hatch mark. So you can't have, you have to keep them dots. That's actual true stippling. And so what I'm trying to do is get a nice gradation from dark to light, but not too many in the area where it makes it just one solid area. All right, so I would keep playing with I will keep playing with this idea, and then I have, this is my, so I would just keep filling it until I've gotten it done. And this being the original that we're working from. And then over here I play with my scribbling, and I might get in here and with my core shadow area, I know this is the core shadow, so when I get down here and I start scribbling, I want to make sure that I scribble this just a little bit more intensely. A little less of the white showing through. And usually what I like to do is like lay some value down. Lay some you know, this is the color of this apple, and where I want it to be light, I don't want to touch it at all. And the side of this little thing has a shadow on it, so I can add that. There is a shadow on the interior of this apple, so I can add that. So I'm going to do a tight little scribble right in here. Okay, and then you're going to play with your actual lines at the bottom, and I would probably scribble these. I kind of would do something maybe like this, keeping them kind of horizontal as I do it, because I like to think about this actual ground that it's sitting on, and I like to use the horizontal line to get that feeling. So I'm going to scribble kind of horizontally, kind of like this. So I'm going to do that. And then over here where we're doing actual cross hatching, we're going to now cross and hatch. Okay, so you're going to actually leave this one as hatching and cross hatching. Okay, so hatching and cross hatching. So where I want it to be, like on this apple here, it's got just the hatches. So I want it to be fairly light. I don't want it to get too dark. And I'm looking at that apple to help me do it. I'm looking at what did the artist do. And then right here is a light area. Now, when I'm doing it, I prefer not to actually draw in the lines, but I had to give you guys something to work with. So I prefer not to have those lines in there, those curves and all that, but it's okay. I'm just going to work around it. And there's another flash of light right here. And at this point right here where it begins to be a cross hatch, so I'm going to bring my hatch down. And I'm trying to follow the form of the apple. I'm kind of giving it a little curve. And then I'm going to, actually I'm going to turn my paper a little bit so I have control. And then I'm going to give a little curve this way. And so I start to cross hatch. Looking over here to make sure I don't get out of control, I don't get it too dark, or, you know, what do I need to do now? Where am I at? Should I make, yeah, probably this area right here is a little darker because it's part of the core shadow. So now I'm going to cross hatch again, adding another layer. And so I just keep building it up. And I think about the shape of the apple. Right here I want to curve it. I want to follow that form. It's coming around and going down. And again, I can't erase these marks, so once they're there, I'm like, oh, I went too dark. But, you know, then you're going to have to go darker still in another area. So I still haven't gotten it to the point where my core shadow is really a core shadow yet, but I'm working at it. You don't need me to keep doing this, though. You have this example to work from, and you're going to keep playing with it. I want you to do a scribble. So this is a scribble. And this one is called stippling. Stippling. And this is just our basic example. But you remember, with stippling, don't do hatch marks. Keep them dots. It's kind of tough. This will take a few minutes, but I think you'll be fine.